Hey, come on. We've got a family. She doesn't get to be more important than that.
Listen, this video includes many questions surrounding Dina. I know there's a lot of people in the community that think Dina and Ellie getting back together is borderline fanfiction and will never happen. You'll hear our thoughts surrounding that topic in the video, but that is not what the video is all about. Sure, we do go over that topic, but we also go over other things. A cut ending from part 2 related to Dina, will Dina even be in part 3 at all, and much more. Timestamps and chapters are provided. So if you somehow new, welcome to the channel. Yeah. So we got a guest for this video, AP Nerds. Feel free to check out his channel in the link down below. He got quality essays on The Last of Us and he covers other games too. So what I did is I gave AP some questions surrounding Dina. Due to time differences, I asked him to record his part separately. So you see his part, then you'll see my part. Then I'm gonna go over the cut ending from part 2, other things related to Dina, and give my thoughts on Dina in part 3. As always, feel free to discuss your thoughts with each other in the comments down below, and I shall reply to as many as I can. But without further ado, take it away, AP.
Hey, what's up, Decken? Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your channel and to collaborate with you on this video discussing about Dina and the future possibility of a Last of Us Part 3. And I guess it's a good place to start with answering the question if Dina and Ellie are ever going to get back together in The Last of Us Part 3. And you know what? I think that they might get back together, but there's also another possibility that they might not get back together. And I guess we'll start with why they'll get back together, in my opinion. And the reason is very simple. Dina just loves Ellie too much. Dina basically in The Last of Us Part 2 followed Ellie anywhere she would go, and if it wasn't because Dina was pregnant in The Last of Us Part 2, she would have followed Ellie anywhere. And it's kind of sad, you know, to see that their relationship kind of crumbled in the finale of The Last of Us Part 2, where Ellie decided to basically sacrifice her family, not caring what could happen after, just to pursue Abby again. And when Ellie came back, Dina was gone with JJ. Even though that happened, I know that if they ever see each other again, possibly in The Last of Us Part 3, if let's say Ellie goes back to Jackson and Dina is there, they could possibly start to reconnect again and, see that they really do still care for each other. Love doesn't just disappear right away. It takes time. And even though you feel betrayed, there's always a reason why, things happen. Dina probably could understand that the mental state of Ellie wasn't in the right place. Dina could possibly understand that, and if she sees Ellie in a better mental state, possibly she might accept her back or even help her to, regain her mental stability, and possibly that could be the beginning of them getting back together. But there's also a reason why they might not get back together, and it kind of goes with the reason why they might get back together, which is Ellie's mental stability. If Ellie hasn't changed and she still has PTSD and she still is suffering with what happened in The Last of Us Part 2, I don't think they might get back together. It just depends on where Ellie is in The Last of Us Part 3. And also, we also got to see if Dina ever returned back to Jackson, or if Ellie ever returns back to Jackson. So it really just depends on the circumstances. And it also depends on the writing of The Last of Us Part 3 to see if Neil Druckmann wants to focus on Ellie and her relationships, or Ellie possibly going in a redemption arc, or just going somewhere where she goes away from the people that she's hurt. It just depends what Neil Druckmann decides. And I hope that whatever they decide to do, and if Dina comes back, that they do it right. And I think they will. So the next question will be if I think Dina will even be in The Last of Us Part 3. And I think yes and no as well. Yes, because if the story does focus on Ellie, then I really do think she will be. I don't think Dina will be there as a significant character that changes the whole story. I think she'll be there more as an emotional support to Ellie if they ever, of course, see each other again. But that's the only reason I think Dina should come back to The Last of Us Part 3. If Neil Druckmann finds a way to put her in The Last of Us Part 3 where she can help Ellie, then yes. But if Ellie, let's say, is on her own and she's trying, let's say, to recuperate mentally or just, go away somewhere else, to see how she can feel better about, the things that happened to her and what she did in the past. Let's say if Dina comes to look for Ellie one day, I don't think that would be a good idea. So I think the only reason why Dina should come back is if, Ellie needs that emotional support. And if Ellie does come back to Jackson and tries to find Dina, then yeah, why not? But I think Dina might not even be in The Last of Us Part 3 because we don't even know if The Last of Us Part 3 is ever going to focus on Ellie's side of the story. Possibly Part 2 was the end of Ellie's story, and we're going to focus on possibly new characters or on Abby or on other people. So if that's the case, then I don't think Dina is going to come back to The Last of Us Part 3. Now, one of the final questions is, how is Dina's story going to go if she's with or without Ellie in The Last of Us Part 3? And I think that if Dina is with Ellie, her story is going to go more in a way in which she tries to help Ellie battle her demons and all the things that she faced in The Last of Us Part 2. She's probably going to be there helping Ellie with her trauma and her PTSDs and all the things that Ellie, had to go through. What I think Dina is going to do is everything in her power to make Ellie know that she doesn't have to be like that anymore. And probably she might even help Ellie in a redemption arc that could possibly happen in The Last of Us Part 3. So, there's many possibilities that can happen with that. But I think Dina is going to be more of a help, an emotional help for Ellie than anything else. I don't think, there's going to be just a story for Dina herself, because I don't think that's the way Naughty Dog is going to do their story. Now, if Dina is not with Ellie, then I think that Dina is not even going to be in The Last of Us Part 3. Even though she's a very popular character and a lot of people do like Dina, I don't think Naughty Dog is actually going to focus on just Dina in a story. I don't think they're just going to focus with her on her character only or on JJ or anything like that. If Ellie is not involved, then I don't think there's a purpose for Dina even being in The Last of Us Part 3. But that's basically just my opinion.
Alright, before I get into my personal opinion whether Dina and Ellie will ever get back together, if I think they will, let's get into first the cut ending. I'll just play you the clip.
Ellie has completely lost herself, right? She did all this stuff and made the wrong choices and has lost herself. And for me, it was leaving all of her passions and loves behind and just going off to whatever. Dimer's reaction on our spoiler cast was that no, she was going back to Jackson, and that it's more rather than me hung up on the song, it's more she has that flashback there of, I can't forgive you, but I want to try. Is that the relationship she's going to go try to have with Dina, where hopefully Dina's love is in the same ballpark of that and the same power of that?
Ashley?
That's actually something we never talked about. And I don't know. I would hope that would be the case, but I don't know. I don't know, Neil.
Honestly, I don't know either. Like that, I'm happy you said it, because that was in the back of my mind. Is like, and not only do I not know, initially, Hallie wrote a draft of that scene, and it had Ellie picking up one of JJ's toys, the one that was on the tractor, and she puts in her backpack, and then she leaves. And I felt like, that's answering it too much. Like that's saying she's going back, and I didn't want that.
So they wrote this, and then they say, nah, that's too obvious, right? Ellie picking up JJ's toy at the end of part 2. That would imply that she would go back to Jackson, try to reconnect with her family, right? It gives you that hint in an ambiguous way. So, there has been things that were cut in part 1 that was implemented in a similar way, like elements of that things that were cut in part 1 were also similarly implemented, I think that's how you say it, in part 2. Let me just play you the clip so you
This firefight breaks out, and when all the dust settles, Tessa's brother is killed in kind of the firefight.
And now Tess holds Joel responsible for this thing, and they split ways, and Joel escapes the city with Ellie and Marlene. And the idea, again, was to build up to this climactic moment where Joel gets incapacitated when Tess, this relentless force from his past, catches up with him. And then Ellie comes to, and she's in the back of a car, and she's kind of confused. She's not sure what's going on, what happened to the cure, like the whole mission. And Joel tells her, there is no cure, we're too late. Whatever antibodies you have, they're all gone. We had to leave the lab. And they get in a fight because she's not sure she believes what he's telling her. But again, Tess, this relentless force, slams into the truck. She's now with this their old gang, and they're trying to like get revenge on Joel. And they surround Joel and Ellie in this ranch house. In order to escape, Joel finds this air duct that only Ellie can fit through. He tells her, sneak out, steal Tess's car. I'm going to fight them here and distract them. I'll meet you back, keep going west towards that city we've heard about, where supposedly they're trying to kind of restore humanity or restore society. Reluctantly, Ellie escapes. As Joel, you kind of have this climactic fight with your old gang, but eventually you get captured by Tess. And now we see just how far Tess has come in this relationship and how she's willing to torture Joel to make him suffer. And just like she lost her brother, she wants to kill Ellie in front of him just to make him pay for that. And then we're back with Ellie. And as she's driving, she pulls off the side of the road and she realizes Joel was lying to her. He's not going to get away. And she turns back. And for a second time, you're playing as Ellie. And you're sneaking into the ranch house. You're climbing up the stairs where Joel is being tortured.
So we had similar things that were cut from part 1, like, you know, particularly the staircase, yeah, and then the revenge, the general aspect of the revenge in general terms. They took that from part 1, they transformed it, made it work, and put it in part 2, right? So would it be far-fetched to consider that they could do a similar thing with the JJ toy thing-a-lay-ding? Yeah, I'm not sure. Feel free to let me know your thoughts surrounding that. But then there's this. Then there is this. Now we're putting a little bit of tinfoil and all of that. DINA'S themes is like 2 themes. I call them DINA'S theme songs, you know, because they particularly play when Ellie and DINA scenes happen. You have this scene. The theme that plays there is It Can't Last. Then you got this scene. The theme that plays there is called It Can't Last Home. So these 2 tracks that specifically play during DINA'S scenes are called It Can't Last. Is that like, what? You know, why are they, what a coincidence that those 2 themes that play, you know, in DINA'S scenes are named that way. Does that mean anything? Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just for the mood and it doesn't mean what, yeah. Maybe it's just particularly to part 2 and it won't affect what happens in part 3. Yeah, but there's something to throw out there. So my personal thoughts around DINA. Now I'm gonna go over my thoughts on some questions like, do I think Ellie and DINA will get back together? Do I think that DINA will even be in part 3 at all? So Neil Druckmann be like,
We've got a family. She doesn't get to be more important than that.
part 2. Like, even in the trailer when they talk about there's a cost, you know, with the added voice line. There's a cost. Part 2 kind of was about, you know, Ellie losing a lot, part of her humanity, and how she getting obsessed by revenge and all of that in the end. DINA specifically said, I'm not gonna do this again. But at the end of the day, you know, couples, they do have fights. Loved ones, families, they do have fights, you know what I'm saying? And they try to recoup it, they try to get back together. We don't, but if we're looking at Last of Us, it's very unlikely. I'm not 100% denying it. I'm not gonna say that. If you think that DINA and Ellie getting back together, I'm not gonna, like, you're allowed to have hope, you're allowed to think that, you know what I'm saying? You're allowed to, yeah. Who am I to say? You know, we don't know what exactly they got going on. We don't know what they plan, but if they do get back together, I think it will still be a little bit bittersweet, dysfunctional. Maybe it'll be a journey in part 3, right? Maybe it'll be a journey of them trying to connect. We see a little bit of connections, but they don't entirely, yeah. You see what I'm saying? They don't entirely, you know, come back to where they were in terms of their relationship. I do believe that Dina could be in part 3, even if she doesn't go into a relationship specifically with Ellie. The JJ toy ending that I mentioned earlier, it does suggest that Ellie tries to go back to Jackson and possibly, yeah. Maybe they could just implement that Ellie tries to go back to Jackson, or she's in the outskirts of Jackson and maybe something happens. I'll get into, yeah, what I think could or might, yeah. We have some things that have been foreshadowed in part 2 surrounding Jackson, surrounding things that I'm gonna go over later, alright? That's a separate video. Yeah, sorry, okay. But it could be that Ellie's in the outskirts of Jackson, and some particular event or something, whatever it might be, causes Ellie and Dina to cross paths again. Because I believe that, because Dina is a very loved side character, like, you know, she's on the level of like Tommy, like she did a lot for part 2, right? And there's a lot of Dina fans, you know, there's a lot of people preaching the Dina supremacy, you know? I would want her in part 3, right? But it could also be that Dina is not in part 3, like, how do you say, personally screen time, but her presence is felt, and she's mentioned or thought about. So without going into a lot of details more, you know, specifically to summarize, so I do think that the chances of Dina and Ellie getting back into a relationship is slim. If it goes on that path, it will never fully be realized. We won't, you know, be like it was in part 2. Like that damage, if we're going by The Last of Us pattern, is kind of irreversible. Like, it would probably end then with them coming close to where they were in part 2, but not fully, right? On the path, if they're going the relationship route. But I think it's more likely that they won't get back together, but Dina could still be in part 3, and yeah. If she's in part 3, I think the role is going to be bigger than just a cameo. If we're going by screen time, if she has screen time at all, it would be more than like a short scene. I think that she play a part in the story some way, somehow, but every window is open. Could be her presence is felt throughout part 3, but she's not in person. Kind of how after the golf scene, Joel's presence was felt in part 2. But those were our thoughts. Feel free to let us know yours in the comments down below. Do you think that the music themes being called It Can't Last has any significance? Do you think that there's a chance that the cut content from part 2 could play an effect similarly to the way cut content from part 1 was implemented with similar aspects in part 2? Yes, let us know. With that being said, thank you for watching the video. Next video, I'm gonna try to get into Tommy, because Tommy's character, I believe, is essential to whatever happens in part 3. But that's just my personal belief. We'll get into more details in another video. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whatever, and learn to survive. And I'll see you when I see you.